I don't know who you are now. That broke my heart. I can't even tell you the effect it had on me, that I realized there was only one way for me to go in the rest of my life.
David Cassidy was once one of the biggest stars in the world. During the early 1970s, millions of fans knew him as Keith Partridge from the hit television show The Partridge Family. Teenagers covered their bedroom walls with his posters, bought his records, and screamed his name at sold-out concerts. His smile, charm, and singing voice made him a global sensation almost overnight. Songs like I Think I Love You turned him into a music icon, and his fame spread far beyond the United States. To many people, David Cassidy seemed to have the perfect life. He had money, success, fame, and millions of loyal fans. But behind the bright lights and glamorous image was a man struggling with pressure, loneliness, and emotional pain. As the years passed, the fame that once made him happy slowly became something that trapped him. David found it difficult to escape the image of being a teen idol, and the pressure of constantly being in the public eye began to affect his mental health. Over time, he turned to alcohol as a way to deal with stress, disappointment, and personal problems. What started as a coping mechanism slowly became a dangerous addiction that damaged almost every part of his life. His relationships became strained, his finances collapsed, and his public image changed dramatically. Fans who once admired him began to see headlines about arrests, scandals, and erratic behavior. The same man who had once stood on stage in front of screaming crowds was now fighting personal battles behind closed doors. David Cassidy's story is not only about fame and success. It is also about the dark side of celebrity life and how addiction can destroy even the brightest stars. His rise and fall became one of Hollywood's most tragic cautionary tales, showing how difficult life can become when fame, pressure, and alcoholism collide. David Bruce Cassidy was born on April 12, 1950, in New York City into a family already connected to the entertainment world. His father, Jack Cassidy, was a successful actor and singer, while his mother, Evelyn Ward, was also an actress. Even though his parents were talented performers, David's childhood was far from perfect. When he was still very young, his parents divorced, and much of his early life was filled with emotional confusion and instability. David mostly lived with his mother, while his father focused heavily on his acting career. Later, Jack Cassidy married actress Shirley Jones, who would eventually become David's on-screen mother in The Partridge Family. Growing up around actors and performers naturally influenced David's interests, and he quickly developed a passion for music and acting. However, his school life was difficult. Because the family moved often, David attended several schools and struggled to fit in. He reportedly had behavioral problems and even faced expulsion at one point. Despite these struggles, he dreamed of becoming a performer like his parents. After finishing high school, he briefly studied acting, but soon decided to fully pursue a career in entertainment. In the late 1960s, he started appearing in small television roles while trying to build his reputation in Hollywood. At first, success did not come easily. Like many young actors, he faced rejection and uncertainty. But everything changed in 1970 when he landed the role of Keith Partridge in The Partridge Family. The show followed a fictional musical family traveling across the country and performing together. Audiences quickly fell in love with David's good looks, natural charm, and singing ability. Almost overnight, he became one of the most famous young stars in America. The success of the show transformed David's life completely. Suddenly, he was appearing on magazine covers, performing in packed arenas, and dealing with a level of fame few people could imagine. For a young man barely in his 20s, the pressure was enormous. The Partridge Family became one of the defining television shows of the 1970s. The series mixed music, comedy, and family-friendly storytelling in a way that appealed to audiences of all ages. David Cassidy quickly became the center of attention. Young fans especially adored him, and his popularity exploded around the world. At concerts, girls screamed so loudly that it sometimes became difficult for him to hear the music on stage. Fans chased his car, crowded outside hotels, and waited for hours just to catch a glimpse of him. The level of attention was overwhelming. Alongside the television success, David also launched a major music career. Songs connected to the show became huge hits, especially I Think I Love You, which topped music charts and sold millions of copies. At the height of his fame, David Cassidy was one of the most photographed celebrities in the world. He earned millions of dollars through records, concerts, merchandise, and television appearances. Yet behind the scenes, the pressure was beginning to affect him deeply. David later admitted that he often felt trapped by his teen idol image. While fans loved him as the clean-cut Keith Partridge, he wanted to be taken seriously as a mature actor and musician. He became frustrated that people focused more on his looks than his talent. The constant touring schedule also left him exhausted. He performed concert after concert while dealing with non-stop media attention and almost no privacy. The stress slowly built over time. Even though he appeared happy in public, David privately struggled with the emotional weight of fame. He also faced dangerous situations caused by obsessed fans. During one concert in London in 1974, a stampede of fans resulted in injuries and tragedy, leaving a deep emotional impact on him. Events like this made him realize how intense and unhealthy celebrity culture could become. As the 1970s continued, David grew increasingly tired of being treated only as a teen idol. When the Partridge Family ended in 1974, he tried to reinvent himself with more serious acting roles and stage performances. However, escaping the image that had made him famous proved extremely difficult. Hollywood continued to see him as a charming television heartthrob, and his popularity slowly began to fade. As David Cassidy's fame declined in the late 1970s and 1980s, he struggled to adjust to a life that no longer revolved around non-stop success. For years, he had been one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment. Suddenly, the massive crowds and constant attention started to disappear. Like many former child and teen stars, David found it emotionally difficult to accept that his career was changing. He tried to continue acting and performing, appearing in Broadway productions, television movies, and live concerts. While he still had loyal fans, the level of fame he once enjoyed never fully returned. At the same time, David continued spending money as though his success would last forever. During the peak of his career, he had earned enormous amounts of money, but he lacked financial planning and trusted the wrong people. He bought expensive homes, luxury cars, and invested in risky business projects. One of his biggest financial mistakes involved spending large amounts of money on horse breeding and real estate ventures that failed badly. As his income slowed down, the debts began to grow. David also faced legal disputes involving managers and financial advisors, which drained even more money through legal fees. Another major problem was the issue of royalties from the Partridge Family. Despite helping make the show and music enormously successful, David later claimed he received very little money from reruns and music sales. He believed that contracts signed when he was young and inexperienced did not properly protect his financial interests. In the 1990s, he became involved in legal battles against companies connected to his music rights, but the process was expensive and exhausting. Tax problems made his situation even worse, with reports claiming he owed large amounts in unpaid taxes. By 1995, the financial pressure became impossible to ignore, and David filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. For many fans, it was shocking to see someone who had once earned millions now struggling financially. The bankruptcy damaged his public image and became another painful reminder of how quickly fame and fortune can disappear. Even after losing much of his wealth, David continued performing because he genuinely loved entertaining audiences. Nostalgia tours and fan conventions helped him earn money and reconnect with loyal supporters. However, behind the scenes, he was already beginning to rely more heavily on alcohol as a way to cope with disappointment, stress, and the emotional pain of watching his career decline. Alcohol gradually became one of the most destructive forces in David Cassidy's life. What may have started as casual drinking eventually developed into a serious addiction that affected both his personal and professional life. Fame had already placed enormous pressure on him for decades, and alcohol became a way to escape painful emotions, loneliness, and disappointment. David later admitted that he struggled deeply with the emotional side of celebrity life. The pressure to remain relevant, the frustration of losing fame, and the constant public attention created stress that became increasingly difficult to manage. Unfortunately, alcohol only made these problems worse over time. As the years passed, his drinking became more public and more damaging. Friends, family members, and fans began noticing changes in his behavior. He sometimes appeared confused, emotional, or unreliable during performances and interviews. Concert audiences occasionally complained that he seemed intoxicated on stage or canceled appearances at the last minute. For many longtime fans, it was heartbreaking to watch someone they once admired struggle so openly. David's alcoholism eventually led to serious legal trouble as well. One of the most publicized incidents happened when he was arrested for driving under the influence. Police reports described him as slurring his words and failing sobriety tests. His mugshot quickly spread across newspapers and television programs, shocking fans who still remembered him as the clean-cut teen idol from the 1970s. Sadly, this was not an isolated event. David faced multiple DUI arrests over the years, each one damaging his reputation further. He was ordered to attend alcohol education programs and face legal penalties, but the addiction continued. When people think about the Partridge Family, they remember bright smiles, catchy songs, and a teenage superstar who made millions of fans fall in love with him. David Cassidy was more than just a television actor. During the 1970s, he became one of the biggest teen idols in the world. Young girls screamed at his concerts, magazines printed his face on every cover, and his music topped charts around the globe. Songs like I Think I Love You turned him into a worldwide sensation almost overnight. To the public, his life looked perfect. He had fame, money, success, and millions of devoted fans. But behind the cameras and stage lights, David's real life was far darker and more painful than anyone imagined. The pressure of becoming famous at such a young age slowly destroyed his peace of mind. He struggled with loneliness, emotional pain, addiction, financial problems, and broken relationships for decades. While fans saw a confident star smiling on television, David often felt trapped inside an image he could not escape. He wanted to be respected as a serious actor and musician, but the world continued to see him only as a handsome teen idol from a family sitcom. That frustration followed him throughout his life. As the years passed, the fame that once made him one of the most admired celebrities in America slowly faded away, leaving him battling personal demons almost entirely alone. His story became one of Hollywood's most tragic examples of how sudden fame can completely change a person's life. By the end of his journey, David openly admitted that addiction and poor decisions had ruined much of what he once had. Yet even through the scandals and heartbreak, millions of fans still remembered the joy he brought them during his golden years. His life remains both inspiring and heartbreaking because it shows how success and suffering can exist side by side in the world of celebrity. David Cassidy was born on April 12, 1950, in New York City into a family already connected to entertainment. His father, Jack Cassidy, was a successful actor and performer, while his mother, Evelyn Ward, also worked in show business. However, David's childhood was not filled with stability and happiness. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he spent most of his early years living with his mother, while his father continued building his acting career. Later, his father married Shirley Jones, who would eventually play David's mother on television in the Partridge Family. Growing up in a broken household affected David deeply. He often felt lonely and struggled to find direction as a child. Because the family moved frequently, he attended several different schools and had trouble fitting in. Reports from his younger years described him as rebellious and difficult at times, and he was even expelled from school because of bad behavior. Despite those struggles, David discovered early that he loved music and performing. He dreamed about becoming a successful entertainer, like his parents. After finishing high school, he briefly studied acting, but quickly realized he wanted to jump directly into the entertainment world instead of staying in school. That decision changed his life forever. In 1970, he landed the role that would transform him into an international superstar almost instantly. When he was cast as Keith Partridge in the Partridge Family, nobody could have predicted how massive the show would become. The series mixed family comedy with music and followed a fictional traveling family band. Audiences immediately connected with the show's cheerful style and catchy songs. David's good looks, charm, and singing ability made him stand out right away. Within months, teenage fans everywhere became obsessed with him. He received thousands of letters every week, sold out concerts across the world, and became one of the most photographed celebrities of his generation. The fame was overwhelming, arriving faster than he could emotionally handle. Even though he appeared happy in public, the intense attention and nonstop pressure were already beginning to affect his mental health and personal identity behind the scenes. As David Cassidy became more famous, his life transformed into chaos hidden behind glamour. During the peak of his popularity, fans fainted at concerts simply from seeing him walk onto the stage. Security guards often struggled to control crowds of screaming teenagers desperate to get close to him. His music career exploded alongside his television success, and songs connected to the Partridge Family became international hits. At one point, David was earning millions of dollars and traveling constantly for tours, interviews, television appearances, and recordings. However, the lifestyle that looked exciting from the outside slowly became exhausting and emotionally draining. David later admitted that he hated being treated only as a teenage fantasy instead of a serious artist. He wanted people to respect his musical talent and acting ability, but producers and fans mostly focused on his looks. That frustration created anger and emotional pressure that followed him throughout the 1970s. By the middle of the decade, public interest in teen idols began fading, and the Partridge Family eventually ended. David tried hard to reinvent himself with more mature acting roles and stage performances, including work on Broadway. But escaping his old image proved nearly impossible. Hollywood continued seeing him as Keith Partridge no matter how much he tried to grow beyond it. At the same time, his spending habits became dangerous. Like many young stars who suddenly receive enormous wealth, David believed the money would continue forever. He bought expensive homes, luxury cars, and lived an extravagant lifestyle without properly planning for the future. When his career slowed down during the 1980s,